Principal of Sri Kuala Lumpur Secondary School, members of the Board of Management, teachers and students. My name is Evelyn and I'll be the chairperson for today, and James will be the timekeeper. The motion for today's debate is, this House would go nuclear. The government team is on my right, and the opposition team is on my left. The first and second speakers have a total of 7 minutes to give their speeches, and the bell will be rung after the first minute to indicate that POIs will be accepted, and once during the last minute to indicate that no more POIs can be accepted. The third speaker has 6 minutes, and the reply speech has 5 minutes. Now I'd like to start off today's debate by inviting the first speaker from the government team to give his speech.
Very good morning, Abid, the honourable judges, distinguished chairperson, accurate timekeepers, members of the floor, and my respected opponents. I, Senial, will be the first speaker, the mercurial Sean will be the second speaker, and the brilliantly brilliant Joash will be our whip who will rebut opposition's feeble arguments. This House strongly supports nuclear usage and would encourage the use of it. Nuclear technology has an almost infinite amount of usages, but what is the one usage that we all almost cannot live without? Energy. Nuclear energy provides a clean and efficient way of producing energy comparative to coal. According to a report published by Najima Fugami of the Division of Nuclear Energy in the University of Tokyo, 1 gram of uranium, or uranium isotypes, uranium-235, burning 1 gram of that is equivalent to burning 300 tons of coal. Isn't this much more efficient in producing energy and also more sustainable? Ladies and gentlemen of the floor, one might argue that the cost in terms of construction and containment systems to contain the waste of nuclear energy is extremely high. As said earlier, the ratio of uranium to coal in terms of energy produced and the amount of fuel used is much lower. This would mean that we also need a lot less of infrastructure to process uranium than coal. According to Ruben A. Anderson, a professor in the University of Oklahoma, nuclear energy is the cost of nuclear energy is significantly lower to run other energy producing plants like wind turbines, hydroelectric plants, etc. if compared to the watt-to-watt ratio. It is also a lot less time consuming. Professor Rubin also agreed that most of the factories now are powered by nuclear energy because it is a lot cheaper and allows mass production to be done quicker. Clearly, nuclear energy is very vital for industrialization and the betterment for us as a human species. To conclude my speech, we strongly agree that nuclear power is more sustainable and efficient, and the more efficient source of electricity. So, why not? Thank you.
Good morning to the honorable educators, precise timekeeper, respected chairperson, my worthy opponent, and of course the members of the floor. I am Pui Ting, the opposition leader of the oppositional team in today's debate, and I would like to introduce the members of my team. This is Ashley Meir. She is the oppositional leader, deputy oppositional leader of my team. This is Evelyn, and she's the she's the oppositional whip of my team. First things first, what is nuclear energy? Nuclear energy is a rare form of energy. It is stored in the center of the nucleus or an atom. After we bombard the nucleus into 2 parts, 2 different elements formed along with the emission of high energy, and by high I mean really high energy. The process generally followed is called fission. There is another reaction called fusion, which produces almost 1/10 of the energy as produced during fission. Fission is the chain reaction which needs uranium-235. The nuclear energy is considered as the most worthiest alternative source of energy after fossil fuels. The mechanism of our team of our team, the oppositional team, is that we want to go against this house will go nuclear. And by that we mean we want to stop all nuclear power plants that are generating nuclear energy as a source of energy. We want to stop all of them immediately because it's not good for us. One reason is because of the radioactive nuclear radiation it produces.
UI,
Accepted.
could you please declare how is nuclear not good for us?
I was just gonna say it. Then proceed. Okay, let me continue. Nuclear radiation is... Okay, we start with the leakage of radiation when... Okay, two words. Chernobyl and Fukushima. Do you guys remember what happened then? Can you imagine the disasters that happened then? Do you remember? Who can guarantee that 100% of the nuclear disasters in the future will not happen? Let alone our future generations. Why can't we give them a life without the threat of being victims of a nuclear disaster? Let's finally put a priority on our lives, guys. All these arguments about cheap energy are totally ridiculous. I mean, come on, are you willing to spend money for your country, the people of your country? Without the people of your country, how is the country formed? That's right, guys. Cheap energy, cheap prices for bad energy resource like nuclear, which is incredibly dangerous to people, should not be continued on. I mean, like, if you were to go and talk about how cheap the costs to build nuclear power plants in front of the Chernobyl and the Fukushima victims, they will probably hate you for the rest of your life. Secondly, the Chernobyl disaster, let me talk about it. The effects and okay, the after effects of the Chernobyl disaster were human exposure to radiation. According to a 2009 United Nations Scientific Committee of the Effects of Atomic Radiation, UNSCAR report, the Chernobyl accident had by 2005 caused 61,200 man-SB of radiation exposures to recovery workers and evacuees. The inhalation dose for the public during the time between the accident and their evacuation from the area of what we now call the 30 km invasion zone around the plant, which had been leaking. Thyroid doses for adults around the Chernobyl area were estimated to be between 20 and 1,000 MSB, while for 1-year-old infants, the estimates were higher, at 20 to 6,000 MSB. For those left at an early stage after the accident, the internal dose due to inhalation was 8 to 13 times higher from the external dose to gamma/beta emitters. For the remain until later, day 10 or later, the inhalation dose was 50 to 70% higher than the dose due to external exposure. The majority of the dose was due to iodine-131, about 40%, and tellurium isotopes, about 20 to 30% for Rb and Te. Why are we going against nuclear energy, power, resource? Because it's a bad idea, it will kill us, and better alternatives are around. Like, there's solar energy, the sun is always there. why can't we? We have solar energy, we can obtain that because the sun is just there. Why waste the electricity? And we have wind. Another one, wind energy produced by wind turbines. We could use them for our electricity source. Like if they said, okay, like my honorable government said, they said that nuclear energy is more efficient. It's more efficient because it produces more energy. Well, why not use the others that are better? They are a better alternative. And with that, I would like to rest my case. Thank you.
Honorable panel of judges, distinguished chairperson, accurate timekeeper, members of the floor, and my respective audience. I will begin off by clarifying some points mentioned by the first speaker, followed by questioning the points brought up by the opposition, and lastly adding on my own points. As said earlier by my first speaker, nuclear energy is nearly infinite. 1 gram of uranium is equivalent to 300 tons of coal. It could also produce 50 times as much energy. Many people have said that nuclear energy could be replaced by wind turbines, hydroelectricity, and have more wave power. According to nuclear researcher Dimitrov Makashkala of Moscow Nuclear Institute, also known as MNI, it takes 15 wind turbines 4 months to produce enough energy to equal what a nuclear plant produced in a day. In his book, A Step We Must Take, written in 2006, he argued that without nuclear energy, we will never be able to advance as a species. Why? Because as said earlier, energy is vital for improvement. And with ever decreasing amount of fossil fuels, a step must be taken to replace them. Wind turbines and hydroelectricity would never equal close to what fossil fuels once gave us. So turning to it is not a solution, but substituting it with something less effective. Wind turbines also take up a lot of space. For example, the wind turbines in Eindhoven takes up a total of 30 acres. And that 30 acres of land will need 4 months. 4 months to produce enough energy to equal what a nuclear plant accomplishes in a day. Talking about hydroelectricity, how many rivers will we ever have? We have dabbled into many man-made rivers to search for solutions, but to no avail. The earth may be 70% water, but to have hydroelectricity to work, we would need a confined space of water that has a certain amount of current. Next, many may then argue that we could use wave energy power to power mankind. But once again, according to Dimitrov Makashkala in his book, wave energy of a port would take 3 months to equal what a nuclear plant could produce in 1 month. It is just slightly better than wind turbines. The evidence is already there. Nuclear energy is obviously not the most effective way. Next. Nuclear energy is obviously the most effective way. Next, I would like to talk about what nuclear energy is made of. Uranium-235. Uranium-235 has a half-life of 703.8 billion years. It was discovered in 1935 by Arthur Jeffrey Dempster. Uranium-235 is an isotope of uranium making up of about 0.72% of natural uranium. Unlike the predominant isotope uranium-238, it is fissile. In example, it can sustain a fission chain reaction. It is also by far the most combustible material available to produce energy and would be still for many generations to come. I would now like to question some of the statements said by the opposition. You said that nuclear energy is rare, but in truth, it is actually almost infinite, with a half-life of 703.8 million years. And 703.8 million years is just a half-life. And it also could be recycled. And you say solar energy, wind turbines, hydroelectricity could be used. But as said earlier, it could not keep up with supply and demand we need nowadays for energy.
I was talking about the rarity of the material uranium found in the earth, and what does it have to do with a half-life? Thank you.
Yeah, but nuclear energy and uranium is almost infinite. Yeah, it's almost as infinite as gold. Yeah, and it uses a lot less energy. Thank you.
I would like to say a very good morning to the adjudicators, the timekeeper, chairperson, my worthy opponent, and the members of the floor. Today, I will be explaining the disadvantages of nuclear energy. The first thing is radioactive waste. The waste produced by the nuclear reactors need to be disposed of at a safe place, since they are extremely hazardous and can leak radiations if they are not stored properly. This waste emits radiations from tens to hundreds of years. The storage of radioactive waste is actually pretty risky. The nuclear waste contain radioisotopes with long half-lives. It means that they can stay in the atmosphere in some form or the other. The waste cause hazardous chemical reactions. Radioactive wastes are usually buried under the sand and are known as vitrification. After they bury it, the land cannot be used. These wastes can be used to make nuclear weapons. Nuclear accidents will be another thing I will be talking about. While so many new technologies have been put in place to make sure that the disaster such as the Fukushima won't happen again, but the risks associated with them are relatively high. Even small little radiation decline. Even small little radiation leaks can cause devastating effects. Some of the symptoms include nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, and fatigue. People who work at nuclear power plants and live near those areas are at high risk of facing nuclear radiation if so happens. It will have an impact on aquatic life. Eutrophication is another result of radioactive waste. There are many seminars and conferences being held every single set.
How do you harmonize radioactive waste with carbon dioxide and monoxide waste that damages the atmosphere greatly? Like, you say radioactive waste, but burning fossil fuels for energy also produces waste.
I will pass that on to my whip.
Like any other metal, supply will be available as long as it's there. Once all are extracted, nuclear power plants will not be of any use. Due to its hazardous effect and limited supply, it shouldn't be termed as renewable. With that, I would like to end my case. Thank you.
Good morning. I would bid to the adjudicators, precise timekeepers, chairperson, my worthy opponent, and the members of the floor. Today I am the whip of the opposition team, and I'm going against that this house would go against nuclear. Our opposition team will go against nuclear. So So to start off, I would like to say that the second speaker said that with ever-decreasing fossil fuels, we will need to have a source of energy to replace. Okay, so why are the fossil fuels decreasing? Because of humans. If we humans take actions to prevent the misusage of energy, fossil fuels will not be depleted. It's our Earth, we stay here. Having nuclear energy just increases the risk of ruining our Earth. As the quote says, prevention is better than cure. Besides that, yes, solar energy, wind energy, hydroelectric energy produce less energy compared to nuclear. But have you ever thought that these are risk-free? And if we combine all these three together, it might be equivalent to the energy that could be produced by nuclear power plants. Accepted?
Do you agree that by using nuclear power, it saves more time, money, and space compared to combining the three sources to get electricity?
Do you know that nuclear power plants actually endangers the life of people? You see here, burning of fossil fuels, yes, they do emit carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxide, etc. Radioactive waste can take decades to replenish and also produce more severe effects. Whereas fossil fuels, we can actually take time to slowly deplete the carbon dioxide and the waste in the air. Whereas radioactive waste, they just come out and in one shot it actually...
You are?
Fine. And I would like to also emphasize that radioactive and fossil fuels are not the only alternatives. Yes, radioactive, the usage of nuclear, it has a risk and it's low, but Fukushima, Chernobyl, are those accidents? Yes, they are accidents, but they are caused by nuclear energy. How can you guarantee that this will not happen again? Is our country ready for the usage of nuclear energy? We should be better safe than sorry. And I would like to also say that nuclear power plants also take space. Just exactly. Okay. I'd like to end my speech by saying that my house would like to go against the usage of nuclear.
Judges, distinguished chairperson, accurate timekeeper, members of the floor, and my learned opponent. I will begin off by rebutting some of the points brought up by the second speaker of the government opposition, and then I will continue by rebutting the first speaker's point. Firstly, the second speaker of the opposition mentioned that there is unknown risk for using nuclear power. Well, however, every single thing in this earth has an unknown risk. But then it's just how high it is, and normally we will try to decrease it to as low as possible. So this unknown risk is actually, you did not clarify what kind of risk, and it's very, very low. The Fukushima case is an exceptional case, as that mankind has already learned from their mistake, I believe, and that I don't think that mankind will make the same mistake, and that time it was to stop a World War II, and compared to the casualties caused during World War II, I believe that amount of death in Japan caused by the nuclear bomb is considered very minimal. Secondly, the government also mentioned that what happens when this nuclear run out, what sources will be used? Well, it takes 200 to 500,000 years for the nuclear to run out or expire. Well, and within these 200 to 500 years, this nuclear can be recycled. So by this time, I believe that mankind would have already developed a new technology and an alternative way to replace nuclear energy in getting better source of power. Next, moving on, why I do not understand why did the government mention that it's a waste of time, money, and land. Well, don't you think that giving supplying electricity to the people is a good thing? If it's a waste, well, don't you think that without all these things, that it will be hard to get electricity in countries, because wind power, as said by my second speaker, wind power is not as efficient as nuclear power. Well, the first speaker of the opposition also mentioned that during her POI, she mentioned uranium. The amount of uranium is very left underground. Well, let me clarify that it is as finite as coal. And my second speaker brought up the fact that it takes 703.8 million years to it can be used for 703.8 million years. So it means that we don't need a lot of this nuclear to supply power. We don't need a lot of it, and the fact that the ratio of nuclear to coal is 1 to 300 tons, which means that we could get 300 million times more power if we use 300 tons of nuclear instead of coal. Don't you think that this means that we will use a lot lesser nuclear compared to coal? And therefore, what my second speaker meant is that we wouldn't need that much nuclear compared to coal or other fuel. Well, accepted?
When I say nuclear is not a great source of electricity supply, I was trying to imply the meaning that nuclear brings all sorts of bad things that will happen. Like I said earlier, are you willing to risk the lives of your people? Just because it's cheap, what if the leakage happens? What if the leakage happens? Then all the people around it die. Thank you.
I believe the wastage of life that the opposition meant was the Fukushima case, which I have already mentioned that was an exceptional because it is used to stop a war, not to start a war. And therefore that case, it really saved thousands and millions of lives. Thank you. Now, another thing, how is it not good to use nuclear power when it brings electricity to all of us on the world? Thank you. Are there any other people?